Hey wadau mazee, this is one of those episodes zetu zenye tunasemanga approach with an open mind.
The primary function in this world is to ensure that your X genes, your X factor, your X chromosome survives the next generation. So every economic activity you do, even a gangster who steals from people, a conman, a teacher, all those resources are meant to look for a woman who you are now going to entrust your genes, and she multiplies them.
Our guest for this episode, Mbira Rimi, has a background in construction, lakini he has written one of the finest books by a Kenyan author. Inaitwa New Confident Africa, and you will love the ideas. Unaharibu.
Yeah.
Sex makes good hair.
For women, it improves their hair, it improves their skin, it improves their they sleep better, and scientifically, and I can
like how good does it make the hair? Like, is it so
glows,
good that you can
glows,
drop the salon?
The glows.
Hii episode ya leo basically iko na explanation ya the science behind everything.
Say these things, you can verify them. Research is all over. It's actually possible, in fact, for you to have a child with a woman and she does not look like you. She resembles a former sexual partner because his genetics, his genes are embedded in her DNA.
When the kid is tested, it is you. I'm your host, Dr. Kingori, and here's another reason to stay subscribed to our channel. Come out, just subscribe, maze. This right here is another reason to stay subscribed and turn on the notifications bell.
But now, if you're ever in need of an office space, please Poa inaweza bring out the best in you as far as creativity is concerned, as far as productivity is concerned. Hautaki kwenda kwa hustle ya uhaya space, sijui kurent, ulipe goodwill and hizo vitu zote. You need to consider checking out Wojo. Wojo is a premium co-working space located in Upper Hill, Nairobi, Makio Hotel, formerly Crown Plaza. Wako na anything you'll ever need in an office and so much more. I'm talking about a gym. Hautawai worry about parking, swimming pool, bottomless coffee, beautifully furnished spaces including private offices and meeting room. Wi-Fi is super fast and the list is endless. You can get in touch with the team at Wojo kutumia hizi contact details tumewekea hapa kwa screen.
One of the best books from Kenyan authors that I've read in recent times. Thank you for Nuria for hooking me up with this. So much to unpack. I'll repeat that. But then again, there's something in Western mindset that I said I didn't understand it because I had to skim through that part for purposes of this conversation. So I thought instead of going back and reading it, I thought it would be interesting if you explained it for us at a testicles. I'll explain that part. At the testicles of a man are outside because they were an afterthought. Now when you look at them, they look like an afterthought. Ni kitu mtu alifikiria baadaye akabandika. That's what comes to my mind. What is going on there?
Okay, this came after a lot of reading about human history and because my position is that human beings were created for a purpose.
Yes.
They are not a spontaneous creation, like biologists or Darwinists want everybody to believe.
Yes.
Human beings were actually created by an intelligent organism, let me call it that, because if you look at the dynamics of the human body, the symmetry, the biological functioning, the physical symmetry, the engineering, it is just not possible for such a complex organism to have just been produced spontaneously.
Yes.
So man was created, that's a fact. And as for me, he was created by God. So my understanding, and this is my understanding, is that when the first man was created, and this actually tallies with what we have in the Bible, because the Bible, I read the Bible on two levels. One, you can read it as a religious text. You can also read it as historical text, because the Bible is actually a very, very old book. So it has a lot of history, which you cannot get from other sources. So a big part of the Bible is actually historical. It records kings in Persia, in Syria, in all those places, in a historical manner, not as a religious function. So human beings were created by God. I'm not ashamed to say that. But when the first man was created, he did not have the capacity to reproduce. He did not have the first man did not have the first human being did not have the capacity to reproduce. And so the creator God felt that creating individual human beings as needed would be very, very tedious, if not possible, if not impossible. And this is actually how the idea came that let us create man, let us create woman, let us create an opposite, because only opposites can produce another whole. Mm-hmm. Two similar things cannot reproduce themselves. So the biblical narrative, and this is I'm speaking this with a lot of caution, because I'm not preaching here, but I'm using the Bible as a reference book. So man must have been the creature man was put to sleep, and his DNA was harvested.
Not the rib, as they say.
Oh, it could have come from anywhere. Mm-hmm. It could have been from the rib or from wherever. By the way, do you know that even today, if you want to establish the DNA of somebody, you go for the femur, the femur. This
the bone.
Yes. This is actually what even today. That's what gives you the best results for DNA testing. So it is likely that the DNA was harvested from his ribs, and then they created woman. But for man and woman to produce, they had to have the reproductive organs. And this is actually how the human testicles, and all testicles of all creatures were now designed outside. The problem is, and I've explained it in my book.
Yes.
The human immune system was already fully functional. It was actually functioning by then. And it would have detected the testis as a foreign body, which has now attacked the body of the host. Mm-hmm. So the human immune system would have actually attacked the testicles and killed them off. So God, in his wisdom, designed them to operate at a lower temperature so that they are actually obscured. The immune system, the body's immune system, cannot detect the presence of testicles. That, I believe, is the function. Even if you look at the scrotum, there's some kind of a scar that goes round up to the anal opening. and that clearly shows that no other part of the body has a similar scar, which looks like it was sewn up.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. This is evident. So that's my position, that the testicles were added much, much later, after the first man was created.
Okay.
And that's how the woman now and the man with his testicles can reproduce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned something.
So temperature is to make sure that the body does not. In fact, even today, if you operate in a function, if you live in a function where your testicles, the temperature rises, they stop functioning. And that is scientific.
If the temperature rises.
Yes.
Oh, and I think in the book you give examples.
Yeah.
People like long distance
drivers,
truck drivers.
Yes. They have
higher infertility rates.
Yes. Because their testicles are always warm.
Testicles need to be stored in a cool, dry place.
So that the immune system does not detect them.
That is master science.
Yes.
So now, you mentioned engineering somewhere, and thank you for clarifying that. I really needed to hear that from you. It's an interesting theory, and I would be tempted to believe it because I've not finished the book, but there's something I've been reading on cell differentiation, where they were experimenting with ideas of if they took a cell from a different part of the body, like a finger is a group of cells that differentiated and multiplied to form this finger, right? But I think they did samples with a tadpole where they took a cell from the skin and used that nucleus to fertilize an egg, and it actually became another tadpole. Like the parts now from the unit structure of a living organism, the cell, they were able to create a tadpole because on fertilization, differentiation happened to form another frog and all the parts. It's a very interesting concept. So we'll leave that pending for now. Like by the end, that challenges the concept. It adds more information to the concept of harvesting a woman from a man's rib. Interesting concept.
Yeah.
One of the things I was hoping, Ama, I trust we can start discussing because kuna so much.
Yeah.
The first thing when I picked the new Confident Africa was the origin of marriage.
Yeah.
Now, I'll not even get started with that. Hapo kuna nyama. Social engineering. I come across a very interesting terminology in your book. Racial anthropologist.
Yeah.
What is this?
Racial anthropologists were people who were planted among Africans by the imperial forces to study our cultures, our languages, our technology, our everything, so that now they could see where to attack the African psyche. In Kikuyu land, for example, the grandfather of Dr. Leakey, the famous anthropologist who has been working with the Kenya National Museum of Kenya for a long time, his grandfather was actually planted in a Kikuyu family in the early 19th century. And he grew up as a Kikuyu. Everything.
That is before colonialism, before...
You see, the colonial state of Kenya started as a company, the East African Railway Company. That's around 1890. British Africa, yeah.
Yes.
It was actually a company. Yes. Before it became a colony, it was first of all a trading company for the railway.
Yes.
So the railway actually is older than Kenya. Okay. But around 1890, 1894, when they decided now to settle, because they had already detected that they would want to convert Kenya as a white man's settlement, permanent, as a white man's country, permanent.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So they needed to see how to influence and to infiltrate the residents.
Yes.
So that now they could see how to twist. Yes. They can use your culture against you. Okay. They can use your technology against you. Uh-huh. And they planted families within African families. They planted kids within African families who would now grow from infancy. You are brought up as a Maasai, you are brought up as a Luo, you are brought up as a whatever. In Kikuyu land, Dr. Leakey's grandfather grew up as a Kikuyu boy in everything: food, clothing, looking after cattle, circumcision. But he's reporting to his masters. And that's why they were able now to pick, because culture is a set of linkages. They would be able to target where to hit, and the whole thing falls apart. Then they hit another joint, and the whole thing falls apart. So they were able to identify the areas of our mind where they can do maximum damage. One was circumcision, because circumcision for men creates units of men who have lifelong alliances. It is like a company, it's like a club. An agency is like a club. So these clubs, when they join together, they become very strong, even militarily. You can actually organize militarily very easily. And so one of the things that they set out to do was to demolish and to destroy the kinship, the age sets. But they were able to do this because they already have the knowledge. Because these boys, when they were growing up in the African households, were reporting to their benefactors on a daily basis or on a weekly basis.
How are they reporting? What's the mode of communication?
It is not that they were cut off from their families. It is not that they were cut off. Like they would be planted in a certain family, but he still has contact with his family. He goes to visit on Sundays or on weekends. But he lives with the Kikuyu family from a very young age.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now
another one is planted with the Maasai. Another one is planted with the Luo. So they know the Luo mind just like a Luo. And when they strike, they don't miss.
How patient are these people? Like, do they? It's a long term.
It's a long term. It's a long term thing. They don't plan in terms of 10 years or 20 years. They plan in terms of 500 years to come, 200 years to come. It's long term. It's a long term project. Because if you look at Darwin, 1865, and his theories are still working today. So it was not supposed to take 5 years. It's a long term thing. And it is passed from, and they have secret organizations which keep the theme and the mandate alive. Are we together? Yes, they have secret societies. Very powerful secret societies.
Let's tie these two.
In the church.
To put this in context.
Yeah.
To put this in context. You've given me an example, offset. that about how Australia comes about.
Yeah.
So if you say that Kenya was originally to be a permanent settlement
Yeah.
for white people,
Yes.
it means something happened that destabilizes the plan.
Yeah.
But there are other areas that this settlement of white people was successful.
Yeah.
And is this the example of how the Red Indians are displaced? Is it the story of Australia?
You know, like Australia is a special case because Australia
Yes.
was started as a penal colony. When the jails became, when Britain started industrializing through the Industrial Revolution and people moved to cities, the crime rate shot up and poverty levels were also very high. So the British establishment decided to move all prisoners from Britain mainland, and they were taken by boats to Australia. So Australia was a penal colony. It was a big prison where they could now be released to become farmers, to become whatever they want, instead of being held in prisons
in Britain.
in mainland Britain.
Okay.
So every Australian you meet, even today, is a product of a former felon, a former criminal, either a murderer or a thief or a conman or whatever. But they were all criminals.
And
That's
this is verifiable historically.
It is not verifiable. It is there. Even in news, you can actually get this from any newspaper. It was a penal colony.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah.
But say, for example, the displacement of the Red Indians from America mainland, I believe, right, was also a long-term strategic plan.
Of course. The moment the white man landed in the United States of America, let's say, okay, let's agree. You know, there are two things here. Europe had become overcrowded. Okay?
Yes.
And it has all become unstable.
Overcrowded back then.
Yeah, but not really because the overcrowding came about because of the feudal land system. The feudal land system. A lord or a Neil or the king could own 10,000 acres of land or thousands of acres of land. And everybody in that place has to work for that lord. So everybody had been reduced to the level of a serf, a slave.
Yes.
Yes. So there was no freedom. There was hunger because you plant wheat, you have to give it to your master. So poverty levels had gone up through the roof.
So this.
So the movement to America was actually an escape from the feudal system in Europe, which was very, very oppressive to the lower classes
of white people.
Of white people.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, like Britain, if you read the history of the Irish, you will be shocked that even today, 2025, the Irish are still treated like slaves today in some parts of Britain. But they will not let you know this because they are white.
So if these white people
Today,
left Europe to go to America because they were running away from oppression,
yes.
how do they become now also oppressors?
Now what happens is this. They go to America. America was a very fertile place because it was virgin. The land was virgin. It was good climate and all that. And they started prospering. And they started the farming became caught off very quickly. They started growing cotton, sugarcane, and tobacco, and started exporting these goods back to Europe. Are we together? The demand for goods in Europe became so high that now they had to look, and there was a shortage of labor in the USA. And this is where now they turn to Africa for cheap labor. And this is the source of the African slave trade.
Okay.
Are we together? They have gone to America. Most of them had come from cities in Europe. They have no knowledge of agriculture. They cannot farm. And they are producing goods in America, selling to Europe. The demand for goods is going skyrocketed. And there is not enough labor. So where do we get labor?
Okay.
They turn to Africa.
So how do they trick Africans to get them to America?
The white people have always been militarily organized.
Okay.
Africans are not hegemonistic. Africans don't go out to conquer people and dominate them.
Yes.
We believe in coexistence, peaceful coexistence. Because the resources in this world, actually even today, are enough for everybody. The earth is so rich, you cannot believe it.
Yes.
The earth is so rich. We have enough land to feed everybody. But because we have flawed a rigged system called capitalism, that's why you have hunger. So they turn to Africa for labor. And that's actually how the wealth of America started growing by leaps and bounds. So whether they were former serfs, now they have become wealthy. And now they have to create a system where they dominate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you say Africans, the reason why I ask how Africans got tricked. You also mentioned to me that Congo was so advanced in the 14th century that Congo was actually sending ambassadors to different countries.
Yeah. It's a fact. It's a historical fact. In 1570, there was a huge delegation that left Congo to go to Holland to meet the king to negotiate trade. And actually, this is where now we are the people who ignited the greed for Africa. Because when they landed there, they had so much gold, so much ivory, so much wealth that the white people started salivating for African goods. And they have been doing so until today.
So Congolese set us up?
Yeah, no, they did not set us up. They were going for trade. But the white people realized that this country is so rich, is so wealthy. Is so wealthy. How do we get these resources?
My Nini, I think because I've not, it's a long time since I read that book. My understanding of how gold becomes a valuable commodity is tied to, I think, the Aztecs and the Spanish, because I think, is it the Aztec and Indians who, when they see how the Spanish people were interested in gold, whereas it was something of abundance, right? It's what creates demand, right? And now gold becomes a precious commodity. I'm looking at it from a linear perspective, like from one case.
Gold has always been precious. In India, the Indian subcontinent have thousands of years of history of looking for gold. Okay. China has more than 5,000 years. Almost the whole of Middle East, the whole of the Arab world, they have known gold, but they don't produce gold. They have always been getting gold from Africa. But they were actually trading. They would bring spices and textiles, and they would get ivory and gold from Africa.
So when Dombolo Nation goes to, say, America with gold and the other minerals, then these people want to find out where is this coming from. Okay.
It's just like you can go to sell your goods in the market. And a thief says, if this man has this kind of goats and cows, we are going to
find out the source.
Yeah.
You go get it from the source. Yeah. So this is technically, this is an interesting...
but you see, you have to look at the white man's culture. The white man's culture, because Darwinism distorted, something happened to the white man's mindset after Darwin. Because even capitalism was formulated around that time. There was no capitalism in 17 or whatever, as an economic model.
Yes.
But they were able now to fine-tune it using Darwin as a scientific basis for capitalism.
Okay.
Yeah.
This goes against one of the most interesting...
And if I may explain something a little bit more.
Yes.
The slave trade was not stopped by the churches, as you have been told all along. The slavery died a natural death with the discovery, with the invention of agricultural machinery. When the Industrial Revolution started, people in America started making tractors, and which could plow. A tractor could do the work of 50 men. You have harvesters, you have shellers. The demand for slavery just went down because it would be better now to invest in a tractor, however crude it is, than buying 50 slaves who you have to feed. Are we together?
Yes.
So the slaves became redundant. As an asset, they became redundant overnight. And this is actually how they were freed, because the mechanization of agriculture made their labor unnecessary.
It's not like Abraham
It
Lincoln.
is a creation to doing you. at Wilberforce.
Out of the goodness of...
No, because even the church itself was trading in slaves. The Catholic Church was a major slave trader. The Anglican Church was a major slave trader.
You say in
Barclays
the book,
Bank was a major slave trader.
You say in the book
Yeah.
that the Catholic Church, a priest would, in the church, a priest would have an altar boy and sell them at lunch.
Yeah.
That was business then.
It's business.
But then how...
He does not look at you as a human being. You are just a commodity, like a coat.
How comes in the Bible they also talk about slave trade, and not slave trade per se, slaves, like almost recognizing the use of slaves as a source of labor?
One thing you have to understand is that translation of this Bible is very tricky. So unless we are talking about the original Greek Bible, or the original Hebrew Bible, the translation could have been doctored. You cannot say that that is actually how the word in the Bible. But the word work for somebody and slavery, what I'm saying is, to work for somebody is noble. Slavery is where somebody exploits you, does not pay you for labor, and he uses you as a commodity. He dehumanizes you. Okay? But if you work for somebody and you get wages, that's okay. That's all right.
This now kidogo.
But slavery had now been fine-tuned as they get labor from you and use you as a commodity, and then discard you when you're no longer productive. In fact, retirement, as we go for retirement today, retirement is a concept that started from slavery, because they would work people.
You are no longer useful.
Yes. And so when the the landowners also became industrialists, they are the ones who first of all invested in industries to manufacture goods and industries.
Okay.
They felt that they should not, the age at which they would free their slaves when they are no longer useful is the same age they started freeing their factory workers, because you are no longer useful. And it has been carried up to today. You retire at 55 or 60.
Okay.
Where are you going at 60 years? In traditional African societies, 60-year-old man is a young man. You can get married and bring up kids at 60 and see them getting married. So the issue that you are redundant is a capitalism tool, because they can no longer use you as a product.
You introduce umetaja capitalism sana, but there's a concept I interact with in this book where you make a statement, and I love strong statements.
Yeah.
Everything we do can be reduced to sex.
Yeah.
Like sex as a common factor, whichever way you go. But before we come there, kwa history ya Darwinism, right? Yeah. You mentioned that Darwin was tasked to prove that the white man is superior to all other races, right? Yeah. And I think we engaged on this, that if at all they believe the white man is superior, what's the logic behind the Jim Crow laws and the rise of white supremacy organizations that, in fact, the details of how these things were done, I don't know kama it is me who has not paid attention to these things in the past before, but what's the logic behind these actions?
Racism is illogical. Racism is it does not have logic. That's why they have to use brute force, crude brute force, because there's no way you can explain or rationalize slavery. It is not, you cannot rationalize it, or racial superiority. There's no, you can scientifically explain that one race is greater than the other. You can only do so through brute force. Let's take Darwin, because you have mentioned him. Darwin was a very young man by the time he started on his journey of discovery. He was a brilliant scientist, I don't deny, but he was only 22 years. Now, we are talking of around 1865, 1860s. 1860s, the latitude, we have, the Earth, we have longitudes that go parallel to the equator, and we have latitudes. The latitude had not been discovered at that time. So, traveling by sea was the most dangerous thing you could ever do.
Yeah,
you needed to have master mariners who could navigate through stars and all that.
or move along
Oh,
shore
yes.
till they
It
get
was
to
a
where
very
they are
dangerous
going, yes.
undertaking. You need to have master mariners. There were pirates all over because those were dangerous times. You needed to have security. You need to have wages for your crew. You need ships. You need support. So where did a 22-year-old boy from university, where did he get a navy ship? Because it was actually a naval ship called the Beagle. How did he acquire that fish? Who sponsored him? Who paid the crew? Who provided security? Who curated his inventions? Who documented them? Who provided all these logic? Because the logistics are, even by today's, even if it was to be done today, it's a very huge undertaking. So it is not possible that a single individual or even two individuals could have done it in the 1860s. So that points to an organization. There was an organization behind the wheel.
That is willing
and
to
it had a
let
mandate. They were actually following a script.
that they were willing to let a young boy take all the credit for.
Yes. They hide behind him.
Okay.
Yeah. So the story of Darwin is fiction. The world was created by God. There is no way you can explain the world we live in, the organisms, the sea, the water, the plants. There is no way you're going to tell me that trees. Okay, let me say something. We are told that human beings came from very basic life forms, and then they evolved to this, they became primates, blah, 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 until they started walking on two legs and all that. Now, even without going into the science of that, which is because it is improbable, because if that was the sequencing, then human blood and the blood of simians, that's a family of monkeys, would basically be the same. It would have been possible for human beings to receive blood from primates for medical reasons. But actually, primate blood is the most, a cow's blood or a pig's blood is actually closer to your blood than that of a primate. But that is aside. When we talk about evolution from Darwin's point of view, then we have to explain how the elephant, how the horse, how the rat, how everything evolved from basic life forms. Because it is not just the human beings who evolved. It is everything under the sun that evolved. You have to tell us how what was the crocodile before it became what it is now? Yeah. What was the horse before it became the horse we know today? Can you show us the sequencing of the evolution of the horse?
Yes.
Can you show us the sequencing of the evolution of the cow? Yeah.
Not just human
Not
beings.
just human beings.
Okay. Sawa. So, but still, acha nisikuachilia hapa hapa, okay, let me rephrase it. So, assuming the white, after the abolition of slavery, and then
after the collapse, I call it collapse. Okay, the abolition was done now by Abraham Lincoln.
Yes. After the collapse of slavery, assuming this emerging group of black people who are successful in business were allowed to operate on equal footing and a level playing field. What does the world look like today? What do you think there's an impact to Africa in general?
You see, what happened immediately after the abolition of slavery? Abraham Lincoln had actually promised the freed slaves, they were promised 40 acres. That's each. And a mule. 40 acres and a mule.
Okay.
Now, what happened is that Africans who were slaves were very familiar with agricultural practices. They could cultivate, they knew how crop husbandry and all that.
Yes.
The white people in the towns, because the landowners, if you take one landowner with 50 slaves, and they have now been freed, okay, he has got a tractor or whatever. This slave can actually work for himself and produce a better crop than the former master, because he is the one who was actually doing the farming. Are we together? So the urban white people could not compete with the freed slaves in agriculture. The freed slaves started becoming wealthy. They started accumulating resources.
They were given the 40 acres and a mule.
Most of them.
Most of them.
Yes.
Okay.
But then you remember, before it went through, Abraham Lincoln was shot. You know, he was actually assassinated.
Yes, I remember.
Yes, before the whole program went through. And immediately Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, that program was stopped. The 40 acres, the mule just stopped.
But still there was a group of black people that had started catching on.
Yes, becoming wealthy.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay? And immediately after the death of assassination of Abraham Lincoln,
yes,
that's exactly when the Jim Crow laws
were passed,
were introduced. And also, if you remember, that's also when the conference, the Scramble for Africa in Berlin, was held in the same period. So these things are not isolated. So in Berlin, they sit down to divide Africa on a table, how they're going to share it up. And in Britain, in UK, in US, they passed the Jim Crow laws. Some of the most oppressive laws ever invented by man to contain man. They were just meant to cripple the freed slaves so that they'll never be able to make anything economic. But against all odds, they still did it.
Okay.
They still did it. They went to school, they established universities, and the Jim Crows now became so severe. Houses were burned. There's a town called Tulsa. Tulsa. I think it's in Oklahoma or Carolina, I don't know. But you can check it out. There was a very wealthy colony of Africans, black Americans. They had nice houses. They had motor vehicles. They were the first people to own motor vehicles. This is historical. They were the first people to own motor vehicles.
First black people or
no, first even among the white people.
Allah?
Yes, because they had the resources. They had money. They were in agriculture. You check what happened to Tulsa. You'll never look at a white man again in the same way again. When they painted their houses, that set off a huge demonstration. They were attacked one morning, and the whole town was burned to the ground for no other reason that black people are coming up economically. And the white man could not accept this under whatever circumstances. The houses were burnt, the people were killed, they were shot. You check Tulsa, just Google Tulsa, and you'll know who the white man is. And the hatred he has for you. The hatred.
This is basically to answer the question, to mean that on a level playing field,
the white man cannot
compete
with the black person. It's not possible. You see, vigor, when we talk of physical vigor is a function of the brain. It's a function of the brain. So somebody who is vigorous physically is also mentally, the vigor is actually the whole system. Even your brain is operating at that level. Now, when you take a black toddler and a white toddler, a black child is ahead in all parameters of human development. All parameters of human development until environmental factors kick in. Because by 4 or 5 years, the white people now invest a lot of money into their kids. We do not do that. But for a black child of 1, 2 years, 2, 3 years is ahead. They can tell colors, they can count, they can control motion. All parameters of human achievement, the black child is ahead.
I'll go do more research.
You can do research
I'll
on
do
that.
more research on
but
that.
But when the environmental now, I call them environmental factors. We do not invest as much as we do. Poverty is still a problem in Africa. And that's how it's supposed to be. So that they cannot use poverty, artificial poverty, to hammer you so that you are not able to stand up.
We'll get to that part. Yeah. But first, there is this interesting concept you say. There's a chapter where you say something that everything we do, and I think I'm interested to know the line between this and capitalism. Like everything we do can be rounded off to sex.
It's not sex per se, because sex is too raw. You use the word sex. It's too raw. I would rather, in this context, I would rather use the union between a man and a woman.
The union between a man and a woman. Yes.
When you have that coitus,
Yes.
that is a unit, the sexual union between a man and a woman in a controlled environment. Controlled environment means in marriage systems, that what you are doing is legally permissible.
So
It does not function if you are it's casual sex.
I took this to mean you have a lot of conversation on that, Pierre.
Yeah.
I take this to mean that when we struggle for resources one way or another, for men it's to impress women.
Yeah.
I've seen this in a different context.
Yeah.
To attract women, because there is women control
Fertility.
Women control fertility.
Fertility.
Men control. Men hold
that cosmic energy to create life. The cosmic energy to create life is in men. We are the one who produce the live sperms.
And women decide where
Women
those
now
sperms are going.
are the ones who nurture
Nurture or decide where the sperms are going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
it's men who decide where the sperms are going. When you choose your wife or whatever, you are doing that selection.
Yes.
But men have an ingrained, at a very deep psychological level. You want to ensure that your DNA, your genetic footprint jumps the next generation. Are we together?
Your genetic footprint.
Your genetic footprint must jump another.
Is this to say, in fact,
it is
where you write,
yeah.
How you write it in the book,
Yeah.
Can I simplify it to say that men are messengers? Like
They are cosmic messengers.
Cosmic messengers.
Yes.
So you are
hold the life force.
Wachana na everything you can accumulate in this world.
Yeah.
The most important thing is what you carry in your balls.
Is to procreate. And especially to procreate. Let me tell you, some things we just assume that they're not. The male factor is the X chromosome. The X chromosome is what holds the sexual code, the entire sexual code, and the male factor of the human species is encased in the X chromosome. Mm-hmm. And every male has a very deep biological drive to sustain that X of his, because when you pass your X, the next generation, you ensure that you and your ancestors have survived another generation. It is intrinsic. It is very deep in the brain. And even your ancestors have an interest in your X, because that's a gift from the gods. The X factor you get is a gift that you are given by God to pass on for the human race to survive. We must have the X factor.
So anytime you're not impregnating women, you are annoying ancestors.
You are actually wasting a cosmic energy source. And this is very dangerous. And this is why, this is now where polygamy comes in. Because for those people who are endowed, you are supposed to increase the chances of the existence of the human species.
Can you leave that responsibility to your brothers?
But you also have
let's say your father has 10 sons, right?
Yeah.
And they all carry the message,
that X.
The X of your grandfather.
Yeah.
See, one of them can take that responsibility and you can have fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but what I'm saying is, every person has, every living man has a responsibility. Okay, you can leave it to your brothers if you so choose. But your genetic, the one you carry now, that your footprint, your fingerprint, your X fingerprint comes to an end. So you have committed what I call genetic suicide. You have stopped your line from progressing further.
And you say, when you have daughters, like
daughters are just vessels. A daughter is a vessel, and I'm saying it on record because it is true. A woman is a vessel through which we procreate. So my sister is of no use to me because she cannot procreate our clans people X factor. She cannot multiply our genes. So our daughters, my sister or my daughter, is of very little use to me because she can only procreate
for another
clan. Genetic line. She has to go to another family and procreate, increase their genetic line.
Someone told me
so
that
technically, daughters have very little biological, put that in quotes, not economic or social, but biological function
to their
families. It is zero. It is zero. because you cannot reproduce with them.
So if you have 20 daughters, still genetic suicide.
Yeah, it is.
Umekatikia hapo.
Yeah, utafikia
You are the last of your kind.
Exactly.
But sasa kwa hii, in this world of today, someone actually bashed me on this show, sababu nilisema, in the world of today, wakora generation, some men think they are raising their X chromosome or their X and their genetic code, but you're raising for another clan.
Well, that one is it has always been there anyway. It has always been there. What I'm saying, infidelity has always been there, even in traditional systems. Infidelity has always been there. But the incident of infidelity was very low at that time. But what I'm trying to say is that is what can I call it? Is what it is. It does not stop you from still increasing your X genes. You cannot say that you are not going to increase your genes because your wife may inadvertently or deliberately be unfaithful and you end up bringing up the X factor of another man. Yeah, that does not derail us from the original argument that your primary function in this world is to ensure that your X genes, your X factor, your X chromosome survives the next generation. So every economic activity you do, even a gangster who steals from people, a conman, a teacher, all those resources are meant to look for a woman who you are now going to entrust your genes, and she multiplies them for prosperity. It is that simple.
So, now that's a very nice way you've come back to it.
Yeah.
So a thief akipiga mtu
Geta,
ananyonga,
yes,
ndio asinyonge.
Yeah, ndio apelekea hiyo pesa. That money goes to a woman who is now nurturing his chromosomes, his X chromosome.
Unanyonga mtu juu ya chromosomes.
Yes, you are driven by that. It drives you at a very, very deep subliminal level. Very deep subliminal level.
Nobody steals for them.
Nobody steals for themselves.
Apart from the selfish outliers who work for them.
A little bit of it, you are going to take beer and what have you. Actually, most of it, if you read books by gangsters, they break into a bank, they take 10 million. They go and they go and hide that money with a woman. They don't bank it. They entrust it to a woman who is going to ensure that their genes survive. So even if he goes to prison or whatever, that woman can enjoy that money. So long as his genes have been secured. Are you together?
So if you go to prison without impregnating her, shauri yako.
It is too dangerous now. Because by the time you come out, you may not have another chance. So whatever you do, even these wash guys,
yes,
they're just doing it for that money will end up with a woman.
There is now glory. Yeah. There is no glory at I have money for a man at I have money privately. Yeah. The overall reason is to nurture your chromosomes.
Yeah. Because it is that cosmic energy source is so valuable that even your ancestors even have an interest so they have an interest.
So what do you say to the selfie guys? Let me introduce you to the selfie guys. The selfie guys are young men who have discovered a way to remove their cosmic energy by themselves for fun.
You know that's so dangerous. It has very serious psychological effects.
If you play with your transformer and waste pouring cosmic energy kila mahali, dangerous.
It hits you very later.
How? Please explain.
You cannot escape depression. You'll either be depressed and you are going to have issues of low self-esteem. The first thing that hits you is low self-esteem. When you suffer from low self-esteem, you know, low self-esteem is hating yourself.
Okay.
You hate yourself. So when you hate yourself, you are going to do things that are injurious to your own self-esteem, for your own interests. And because you don't have, because your genes are not safe somewhere, you have no interest in keeping yourself safe. You can drink drugs, You can put your life in danger.
This is subconsciously,
Yeah.
right? What if you know that by
It is not
by
possible.
playing with cosmic energy, it may affect your self-esteem, so you control your esteem?
But let me tell you this way. To do that in the first place is a mental aberration. Yeah, it means you have no control. You are not functioning as a human being. You have now entered the level of animals. You are no longer a human being. You are not just behaving like an animal, like a dog or a goat.
If you were to follow internet advice,
Yeah.
is it healthy?
It's so dangerous.
They talk about no harmful effects, and
It is
this
so dangerous.
has misled a lot of people.
It is so dangerous. It's so dangerous. I don't want to talk as a doctor because I don't have the medical capacity to speak as a doctor. But I know for a fact that if you do that for any length of time, even you cannot escape low self-esteem. But also your joints give. The knee joints, the hip joints, they will give at some point.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So this, if you are to advise men, young men of all ages watching, is that anytime you want, your cosmic energy should go into a woman.
To go into a woman, and this woman is not just any woman you meet on the streets. So that must be done in a, that's what I call a structured manner.
This
structured
also
manner,
will mess up your self-esteem.
Yes. Because you see, it doesn't have any, when you do it with casually, you're also wasting it.
Casual sex is wasting cosmic energy. Of course.
Because you are going to harvest your cosmic energy in a condom and throw it in a dustbin. That is the most foolish thing a young man can do. Harvesting.
That's a very strong word. Yeah. Harvest.
Yeah, because you're harvesting your cosmic energy in a condom, then you throw it in a like rubbish. Yeah, that is not rubbish.
Those are people.
That is something that God Himself created with a lot of care. Okay. It is not rubbish. It should only go into a woman. Now, let me tell you one thing. It is not that every time you go with a woman, she must get pregnant. There are some hormones which women do not make with their own bodies. So when you go with your wife and you exchange those body fluids, you're actually feeding her some of those hormones which she cannot make with her own body. Are you together? So it is not that every time you have a union, you are going to have a baby. But that energy improves a woman's well-being. It makes her calm. It improves her skin. It improves her stress levels. They come down. Her hair, everything. It is because of that.
No.
It's because of that.
Unaharibu.
Yeah.
Sex makes good hair.
For women.
Hey.
It improves their hair. It improves their skin. It improves their they sleep better. And scientifically, and I can
like
prove
how good does it make the hair? Like, is it
so
good that you can drop the salon?
It glows.
Or you can't do away with the salon. It's just gross.
Salon is not, you see, salon is something very artificial, and that's another trick which has been played on our minds, that our hair is not beautiful.
Oh, so I just needed you to clarify that you cannot have sex so much that you don't need to go to the salon.
It is not that. But what I'm saying is that a woman who gets her hormones from one partner, it has been verified. It has been verified scientifically that they have very low stress levels. Very low stress levels. They sleep better. They have better skin. And in fact, married women outlive unmarried women by 8 years.
You see,
this is scientific.
That's where I was going next, because it's in the book. At married women, if you're married to one partner through the right channels of marriage, they live longer by 8 years.
Yes. So if the average age like Kenya is 70 years, a married woman will clock 80 plus. So long as she's in a stable relationship with one man. When you have, for a woman, when you have multiple sexual partners, you increase what we call the chances of cervical cancer. It is a function of multiple sexual partners.
Whoa.
Cervical cancer has been declared a sexually transmitted disease by no other than the United Nations and the World Health Organization. Cervical cancer is an STD, is an STI. It is not like other cancers. It is caused by the incidence of multiple sexual partners. And these things are verifiable. I'm not making them up.
Let's now, because we have found ourselves in the chapter where you talk about the origin of marriage, right?
Yeah.
Where have we gone wrong? Because you say that, in fact, there's something you umeandika hapa, like there's a difference between a child who, there's a difference between a single mother and a widow. You say there's a very big difference. And you also say that for a child who loses the father during infancy versus a child from an absentee father, the child who loses the father does not experience something emotional instability.
No. All these things are all these what I research is there. It is on paper.
Yes.
All you need to do is to just you Google and you're going to get it.
Hawa watu wetu wanakuanga hivyo.
A single
Any reference they can
a
follow?
widow is not a single mother, by the way. A widow is a widow. A divorced woman is not a single mother.
A divorced woman is
It's not a single mother. A divorced woman is a married woman who was separated from her husband. But her kids have a biological or a social connection with the father. Even if he dies, that connection is still there. A single mother technically is a woman who has kids, completely outside any frame, any setup. Yeah.
And you say men are responsible for allowing this?
Of course.
How? Explain.
Traditional societies,
and
not just African societies. The Indian society has maintained that to today. The Muslim families still maintain that to today. Because it is actually better. A chaste woman, a pure woman, is far much better because when a man is getting married, he's also looking for peace of mind. That nothing makes a man thrive economically than a secure, calm, domestic environment.
Okay.
Now, what happens is, and this is true, I'm not saying it because I'm saying these things, you can verify them. Research is all over. What happens is that when a woman goes with a man, when a woman sleeps with a man, and she absorbs those hormones, they actually are imprinted in her DNA.
Any man.
Any man. So if a woman has had sex with 10 men in her lifetime, in her genetic map, we have the DNA of all those 20 men. And they can actually be identified scientifically.
So if you have money, you can catch a cheating partner through a DNA test.
Yeah. They become part of her. It's actually possible, in fact, for you to have a child with a woman and she does not look like you. She resembles a former sexual partner because his genetics, his genes are embedded in her DNA.
When the kid is tested, it
is you. But it doesn't look like you. He takes after, because he takes after which are hiding in her, whatever. So what happens is, this is true. So when you are sleeping with a woman, or when you marry a woman who has had multiple other partners, anytime you are in bed together, those men are also present in that bed. And this actually is what creates it creates a very hostile environment. Yeah, women who have this kind of background because they are tensed. They are tensed. They don't know what is ailing them, but they are not satisfied with anything. Okay? They are kind of depressed. They are hungry, but they don't know what the hunger is coming from. And they are very, very difficult to live with.
Very difficult to live with.
Yeah.
Because you sleep with 20 guys every night.
Yeah. Or even in her lifetime, before you marry her. Because every relationship, you see, let me tell you one thing. Every time you have a relationship with a woman, even if you go with a prostitute today, she imagines that you are the last man she goes with. So tomorrow morning, she is hoping that you'll keep her. If you don't, her disappointment and her frustration increases. Then she gets another man. Whatever, even if she's not a prostitute and is a boyfriend, she stays with a boyfriend for 6 months. She has invested her emotions in that man. And when that relationship collapses, she actually goes through emotions like divorce. So if a woman has had, say, 10 relationships or 5 relationships, which have not worked out, she has gone through 5 divorces. So you are marrying her, you think she's as your wife, but she has gone through 5 divorces mentally, because every relationship was a relationship in its own way. It was a wholesome relationship in its own way. And she still has the genes of those men in her system. Are we together? But the stress of going through a breakup is the same as the stress of a divorce.
So now
and that's why African traditions and even the Muslims, they insist that for a young man, they cannot let you choose your first wife because you are going to make a blunder. Because even our traditional society, they could not let a young man choose his first wife because you're going to use beauty, you're going to use whatever, and it may not be what is good for you. So
beauty is off the table of marriage.
Yes. It is there. Beauty is actually celebrated in African traditions. Beauty is celebrated even in songs. But there are other things which come in the lineup of values. There are other values which come ahead of beauty.
So when your wife is being chosen for you, you're not allowed to choose your type.
It is not that you are not allowed. Actually, it is not that you are told marry this woman. No, it does not work that way.
Because you can say no.
You can say no. In fact, even a girl could say no.
Okay.
But there must be a valid reason. But what happens is that you are not told that you must marry this girl, but you are pushed in a very subtle way towards a certain family. Your father pushes you. He sends you to that man's home. Can you go and take this so that you can meet girls from that home?
And hopefully you like them.
Yes, you take one of them. Are we together? But for girls, if she failed to get a suitor, then they would get a suitor for her. And I believe it works because the question is, can your own mother take you to a bad home? If you are a girl, ask yourself, can my own mother get me a bad husband? Can she take me to a bad home?
My mother has tried hooking
That's the question that I ask every woman. Ask yourself, can my own mother take me to a home where I'm going to suffer?
My mother has ever tried setting me up with a girl, and I felt pity for arranged marriages in my community.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, like, how comes we can't share a taste?
The arranged marriages work because marriage is not just about that union, that cosmic union. Marriage has economic aspects to it. It has social aspects to it. It has legal aspects to it. It has religious aspects to it. It has economic aspects to it. So when you take all these and many others, I'm just giving a few. So the one that ticks the most boxes is the most suitable for you.
Not love.
Love grows. Love comes later. In fact, love grows. And I believe so. If you watch older people with their wives, you can see that the relationship that's when they have love. That's when they have love. That's now when they're able to experience love. They have struggled with family. They have struggled with kids. Some have died. One has lost a job. One has been sick. And that's now how the bond keeps on growing until that at some point you cannot even start looking the same.
So love is a retirement package.
Love is something that grows. It grows on you.
Based on experiences.
Yes, shared experiences.
No love at first sight.
Love at first sight can grow. Because if love is being triggered by economic interests, if the economic position changes, love can disappear. If love was dependent on beauty and beauty fades, then that love can disappear. But when love is now, and especially respect, the most important thing that we have is respect. When relationship start on respect, and then the respect we now move to the aspects are like I've enumerated, the economic function, the legal function, and all that. But it is based on respect. Nothing can destroy that marriage.
A marriage
Nothing.
based on respect.
Respect, and then the other values.
Chastity is very important in your explanation of marriages that work. And when you say, your explanation of what happens when one sleeps with a woman, if that's scientifically backed, then it explains a lot.
Yes.
But you yourself told me stats, I don't know from when this statistics was, that at 40% of women join university as virgins. 40. I used to think hii kitu ya kukula maembe na chumvi was a joke, but this is serious.
Serious as in? You think it is too high or too low?
That's too low. 40.
You know, we have adopted a very... One thing I have to explain is that our religion has failed us because we have not been able to integrate our Christian values into cultural values and political values. So we treat religion in its own box. It has a pigeonhole. Then we have another pigeonhole for culture. But for religion to really benefit a human being, it must be entangled, it must be expressed as culture. Now, Christianity has never been part of our cultural heritage. In fact, Christianity is antagonistic to African cultural practices. Are you together? Because my grandfather's generation and your grandfather's generation, the idea that a man can marry a non-virgin, they could not process that. It was something which would have been so
weird.
It would have been so absurd to imagine that a young man in the prime of his youth can give his future to a non-virgin. They could not process that. And you see, in a very short period of time, Christianity has really twisted our minds. We have now, instead of celebrating female virginity and female caste, we celebrate... It has actually been stigmatized. A virgin woman in other cultures, she walks around with a badge of honor. It could be a scarf around her head. It could be something that she puts on to let everybody know that I'm a virgin. It is to be celebrated. But with us now, we have been twisted. We do not celebrate chastity of women. We celebrate education. We have now brought elevated formal education, to a very high pedestal. So a highly educated woman, but who lacks morals, in the way we do things now, is actually considered to be better than a pure woman of low education. And this is the tragedy of the African family. The tragedy of the African family. We have elevated education instead of morality. It should be the other way around. We should elevate morality. It should actually occupy a higher level in our value system than education. So by elevating education, we have now been men think that education is a better investment. Are you together? So you find that a woman with a career like a nurse or a doctor is considered a better marriage partner than a woman of high morals but low education.
Yes.
But you borrow from other cultures. We borrow from the Indian culture. We borrow from the Islamic culture. Morality is the key. Morality is the key. Because a moral woman will make you economically viable. She will uplift you economically. She will uplift you
Is this not
spiritually. She will bring up a stable family.
Is this not about the woman's intrinsic personality? It's directly tied to purity.
Women, let me tell you one thing, and feminists may fight me, but women don't have what we are calling You see, women as a species are the same. If you go to Russia today, and you get a Russian woman, and you come and take her to the village, she'll just fit in. Tomorrow you'll find her doing what other women are doing. Mm-hmm. If you take your wife,
they are more adaptable.
They don't have. That's why they are made that way. They fit into any culture. Their template is.
What I'm asking is,
they don't have a cultural template. Although they are, that's very interesting, because women are the ones who transmit culture. Because they spend more time with kids. They're the ones who teach them language, they teach them values. Are you together?
I'm asking this because someone can give you an example.
Yeah.
Like I personally know a friend of mine who runs a clinic in Upper Hill. Yeah. And the friend of mine, she's 60, right? And when you listen to her story, from where their clinic starts, from a corner, to now they own like a whole floor of a building in Upper Hill, you can see the value of having someone who's a visionary woman on your team, okay? And she runs it, they run it as a family, but you can see the print, how hard she has worked, and the input she puts. And people say that there's this type of woman who, under whatever circumstance, will multiply what you have. So it's there's a type of woman.
What I'm saying, I'm not saying that you cannot have an educated, moral woman. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that as a society, we are putting higher, we are valuing education or material possessions. We elevate them on a higher pedestal than morality. I'm not saying that educated women are bad, no. I'm not saying that all moral women are good, no. But on balance, it has the empirical evidence across many cultures, even the most advanced cultures like America. You go to Norway, we have research from Denmark, we have research from Sweden. It has been seen that a woman, if you can marry a woman, all other things being the same, morality and respect are better for the family and for you as a man.
And chastity is directly linked to the values.
Yes, the value system.
Chastity is top in that list.
Yeah.
So in this world that we have accepted, we live in our Cora generation, like both men and women, right? Is this to say that we are experiencing the end of marriage as an institution? And does it mean that, and there's also an explanation you give on how we get to where we are today. First of all, do we accept that, because you explain the circumstances under which a marriage is guaranteed to work, okay? And I agree with most of the things you say there, okay? Is this to say that we are experiencing the end of marriage as an institution under these circumstances today?
Marriage is not going to end as an institution, but it's going to go through a shift, a very big shift, because society is heading towards collapse. Marriage is not going to end, but society is going to collapse. I have no doubt in my mind that society is going to collapse.
What does that mean?
It will disintegrate.
Society, you mean human beings?
Not end, but the structures of the socio-economic state are going to collapse. Let me give you an example. AI is now coming, and it's taking over. And there's nothing we can do about that. It is not stoppable. Now, AI is going to take. It is very easy for the AI to take high-class jobs than low-class jobs. What I'm saying is that AI can do the work of an accountant without human input. AI can run a pharmacy without human input. But AI will not be able to build a house, to put a house on top of another. You will still need a mason. A robot will not be able to wire a house. You still need an electrician to pull those wires. So according to me, we are now entering a phase where there will be massive loss of high quality jobs across the board. they'll be taken over by AI. So joblessness and destitution is now set to increase. And again, a lot of women are in those service industry, which is going to be very easy replaceable. So very soon we are going to have millions of women across the world who have been enjoying a very high standard of living as single women, and they are going to fight, and it's going to happen. It's very soon actually. We may not see the end of 5 years from now. It may happen sooner. So that alone is going to create some tensions and desperation across the board, across all societies.
That's the loss of certain jobs leads to growth of certain industries.
Yes. That's number one. Number two, governments, with the entry of AI, although this is not, with the entry of AI, the moment AI, robots and all that take 30%, between 25 to 30% of those high-cost jobs, income tax is going to drop massively, meaning that governments, not just the Kenyan government, governments will see their tax income shrink. So here we have millions of people who have been thrown out of jobs, and here we have governments who are seeing their income collections shrinking because the workforce, the human workforce, is shrinking. Robots don't pay income tax. They don't pay VAT because a robot will not go and buy a bottle of beer, or buy a car, or buy a holiday, or go on holiday, or take a kid to school. Are you following me?
I'm following.
So the confluence of all those factors, loss of income for governments, loss of tax income, loss of jobs for the workers, people cannot service their mortgages, they cannot drive, they cannot afford the basics, and collapse. Society will actually collapse in a heap of dust. It will collapse literally. We will have to have policemen, people will be like animals.
What's the difference between this prediction and the other predictions people have had before of the end of the world?
Me, I'm talking about purely from my observation of what I can actually derive from my own observations. Because other people talk about the end of the world in a spiritual sense. Me, I'm not speaking about nothing spiritual.
Sense.
It's a purely technical and economic. Because when you like drivers, soon we are going to have a lot of drivers on the streets, because we are now going into the age of driverless vehicles.
Can they enjoy in the fact that Kenya is always 8 years behind as far as
that we are going to hold it? That means we are going to hold that. We are only going to delay the final collapse by a very short period of time. The only institution that can ensure the safety of men, women, children is the family unit. Even if the economy collapses, the family that will have those elements together may be able to survive, might survive. But if we are going to have a family that does not have any of this, either it is a single family, male-headed without a woman, or female-headed without a man, or there is no way we are going to survive. It's not possible.
So now you say that the disintegration of society, and I believe, this is also from this book, was how we glorified vices using words. Say, for example, infidelity skyrockets, for lack of a better word, with the introduction of contraceptive pills, right? In the 60s. Okay? And now you also go in deep on the concept of like abortion being renamed into something else that is
safe motherhood.
Safe motherhood.
It's called safe mother
to make it more acceptable.
Yeah, acceptable.
And you make
to remove
the
stigma.
You make a case that there is nothing like safe abortion.
I've done a lot of research, although I'm in construction, but I do a lot of research. You can do a lot, but then you can get a lot of information online if you have the time and if you know how to look for information. There's a system to it.
Yes.
There's nothing as dangerous. There's the most dangerous thing a woman can do to herself is to procure an abortion. I can say that without any doubt. Yeah, it's the most dangerous thing a woman can do to herself. But it has been glorified. It's called safe motherhood. We have clinics that offer abortion free of charge. But it's the most dangerous thing that a woman can do to herself. Because it has very serious health, psychological, emotional repercussions, which you are not told up front. It has lifelong health issues. A woman who has an abortion will never enjoy health, good health, for the rest of her life. Her fertility is compromised. Her emotional state is in turmoil. In fact, there are women who feel that there are women who actually have mental problems. They're in depression because some even talk of a situation where they feel that they're being stalked. You know what stalking?
Haunting.
Somebody's following you around.
But we have cases of people who've had numerous abortions and they're doing fine. And they go ahead.
That again, in fact, I explained that. Because what happens is that when you procure the first one, it induces a level of low self-esteem. So when a woman has low self-esteem, the first thing she does is to engage in casual sex.
Low self-esteem.
Low self-esteem. Every woman who engages in casual sex suffers from low self-esteem. Yeah. It is a way of self-abuse, I would call it that. When you give yourself to different men, you're actually abusing yourself because you don't love yourself. It's an issue of esteem. How do you explain it? It's low self-esteem.
Hey, there's something in the male fraternity they call game. Men who are so good that even the most principled woman cannot escape their grip. Is that not a factor?
I'm not talking about those specific. They are always, any statement we make always has something that does not fit within. So every time we talk about a situation or a research, we are talking about 80% of cases will fit within that. So women who engage in casual sex have issues of low self-esteem. It could have come from very far. Maybe she was abused. So if she had not been abused as a child, it would not have happened.
Okay.
So it could be as a reaction to that. But it does not change the fact that low self-esteem plays a very big role in the casual sex.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now there's something we usually throw around, and I think I had this conversation on my Facebook page some time back.
Yeah.
There was a conversation between of Indian men and Somali men who are very they gatekeep their women.
Yeah.
They wouldn't want their women dating people from other communities, right? And I think for white people, it was during the Jim Crow laws, and when the white supremacy organizations come about, they used to lynch even children for looking at women lustfully, right? Is this, does this have a genetic underlying factor? Like you want to guard your genealogy so much that you don't want it to be, you don't want to introduce foreign cosmic material.
No, like I told you earlier, women, from a biological point of view, strictly biological, women have no biological use to their own families because you cannot reproduce with them. Mm-hmm. So the cultures that guard their women, they guard them for purely economic reasons. You want to keep this woman pure so that now you can negotiate with a man of higher economic value from within your community. Because these communities also...
Oh, it's yes.
Yes. You want to negotiate with a man. Because polygamy, you see these things are tied. They are all tied. You cannot take anything one in isolation. You cannot take anything one in isolation. They are interlinked, one way or the other. It's like a net. This one crosses this way so that they make... But if you cut one string of a net, the whole thing starts to disintegrate. Now, polygamy, because it is part of that now. What is polygamy? Polygamy is misunderstood by a lot of people. Because a lot of people, including modern Africans, they think that polygamy is a situation where men have many spouses. That is not polygamy. The culture of polygamy is where every woman has a husband. Are you together? Mm-hmm. Every woman has a husband. It is not that every man has 10 wives. It is every woman has a husband. How do you achieve this? How do you achieve a situation where 100% of women have husbands? Is to make sure that men who are economically endowed, who can support larger families, take more women because they can be able to create the economic conditions necessary to bring up a large family. Two, across the world, wealthy men are regarded as wealthy men, heroes, leaders. They are regarded like they have better genes. So it is a way of making sure that those better genes increase in the community. Are you together? So the Swaziland, the king has 20 wives. If he has 20 wives and each one has 5 kids, those are 50 people with kingly genes. So you're actually improving society. You are actually improving society because the king's genes are the best. So if you can have as many people as possible with the king's genes, the better for you.
You remind me, because in this book you say...
So polygamy is about ensuring that every woman, every child has a father. No child is fatherless.
That's why in the book you say that for someone like Obama to just have one wife and 2 children...
That is actually madness. It's madness. It's madness.
It's a waste of...
that cosmic energy. Because now he still engages in coitus, but where does his cosmic energy? With his superior.
He should produce more Obamas.
Exactly. They would benefit America in a greater way, in a much bigger way.
What's the guarantee that every child he produces will be an Obama?
It's not guarantee, but those genes, even if his children do not become great, his grandkids with the X factor, with the Obama X, will be great. It can jump one generation, but at least those genes are secure. They have jumped one generation. They're still secure.
So there are certain traits.
Yeah.
There are certain traits like, so this would explain why Tsemekama kingship, not kingship, like royalty was guarded so closely that the crown was passed in the family because the traits of the person who is the king are the same from where it came from. Royal blood.
Yes. You don't want to contaminate it. They breed within a certain circle. It has some medical repercussions, but those are overlooked for the overall good. You can have inbreeding. You can have one person not either having slow mental development as a result of that, but that sacrifice is considered worthwhile for the greater good of the family or the community.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a different perspective. That's a different perspective.
So that's how it works.
Allah. So now, how should people then, before we close with the conversation on donor aid, how should people go around sex in the modern world, breeding, mating, and choosing a wife or a husband?
Like I'm saying, that men hold the key. Men hold the key. Because we are talking about your future happiness.
Your future happiness.
Your happiness. Because men want a calm environment. When we are saying that whatever we do is because of the safety of our genes. So imagine you have spent the whole day doing geta, and you have been chased on that. You could even get killed. When you get home, you want a place where you can at least cool off in a cool environment, so that tomorrow you can resume your activities.
Whatever sacrifice you do to gather resources.
Exactly. They must be worthwhile. So you have to have a very calm domestic environment. And the only way you can achieve that is by getting women with these qualities. And we have them.
So anytime you walk around, ama you have sex with people who don't match up those qualities, or you are not a man in a family setting,
No.
you are a wasted seed.
Yeah. It's wasted. It's not a waste, actually.
You should have been harvested in a condom.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It is the same thing. And now we have kind of normalized casual sex. You go everywhere, you get people selling condoms openly.
So condoms are sold
Are a
as
sign.
of safe sex. They are an ini for safe sex.
No, they are a symbol of moral degradation. They are a symbol of moral degradation.
So safe sex is virgins marry each other.
Yeah.
And then
Safe sex
don't go
is
outside.
sex in families, within the family setting. That's the safe sex we are talking about. You cannot have safe sex outside a family structure. It must
cannot
be with a
have
woman
safe
who you are
sex.
married to. Whether you have 5 women as spouses, but it is sex within that group.
And this
You now
group,
practice safe sex within that group.
but Sasa, in this group of 5 women, if one of them does not have values, she could kill all of you.
What happens is that with this kind of families, research shows that the incidence of infidelity
Are
is very low. Is very low. Because these are people who have made a conscious decision to move into that because of the benefits. The benefits it produces, the safety. So nobody wants to compromise that. In fact, infidelity is now greater in monogamous relationships. Divorce is actually higher across the board in monogamous relationships than in polygamous relationships. There are more divorced monogamous women and more divorced monogamous men than more divorced women in polygamous relationships.
William Odongo Mamo, in the book Journey to Kaliech, writes that polygamy started being written off from the Luo community because it was found that it is through, HIV was very rampant in that setting. But in your book, you write that it's actually less prevalent in a polygamous
We
setting.
are talking about empirical evidence. Evidence which can be verified in a structured manner, which you can actually be able to explain. So we have the communities that practice, even our coast brothers. Mm-hmm. We compare that, the incidence of HIV/AIDS, with our brothers like the Kikuyu, the Luos. And across the board, not just in Kenya, countries where polygamy is dominant, even like countries like Senegal, are the ones which have the lowest incidence of HIV. Monogamous countries like Kenya and South Africa are leading the pack.
And
because there's availability of casual sex. When you do not practice safe sex within polygamous families. Because I said everyone has a husband in polygamy. It is not the other way around. It is not that the man has many wives. Technically, yes, but in real sense, it is the issue of every woman having a husband that drives polygamy. Okay. So when you stigmatize polygamy and you do not address the factors that make sure that polygamy works, or you don't provide another safety net for women, then you have a lot of free women in a society. The only way they can get sex is casual sex. Because they are not married and they are also human. They need sex. And this is the catalyst for HIV and AIDS. And this is what we have. The evidence is so clear.
And if a woman, say for example, has had multiple partners, and then she settles down with a professional sinner. A professional sinner is a man who can outdo all the sexual experiences of any other person this woman has ever had. Would that guarantee that they can settle down together?
You see, men, we regard, for us, sex is a biological function. It is not so much tied to love. In fact, if I get a woman here, as we speak, and she agrees, we can just go in a dark corner, and we finish, and I just go home.
Like nothing.
Like nothing has happened. And tomorrow I may not even remember her name because it is driven by biology.
Cosmic energy.
Yes. And you see also sperms, human sperms. You know, we manufacture sperms constantly. Even now you're making sperms. At some point, they want to get out themselves. They force you. Because when they're mature now,
To look for
a
harvest.
safe place
Yes.
to put them. Because they also want to become
A
human
safe
beings.
place.
Yes. But they want you to put them in a safe place. Yeah. So that's why for men, sex is not tied so much with love. So I can have casual sex, and it does not mean that I don't love my wife. I'll still go home and nothing, you know. But for women, they always invest emotionally in every single sexual act. They invest emotionally. So this is why I told you that if a woman has had 5 breakups, she has actually gone through 5 divorces. A man who has slept with 10 women, he does not even remember their names. It does not, it's nowhere in his psyche.
If you are a busy man and you don't have a woman, and you say sometimes your sperms want to get out, if you remove them, ziache kukusumbua. Is that a bad thing?
It's a bad thing.
If they are distracting you from busy work.
Actually, what we have done, we have actually distorted society. We have distorted society so much. And I was telling another young group of young people, sometimes I'm invited to speak to young men. I was telling young men that the best time to get married is before you are 24. It doesn't matter. Even if you are at the university, you're actually going to make it. You're actually going to make it. Yes.
In this economy.
Yeah. You are going to make it. All you need to do is to have that mentor framework of male responsibility. That's the best time to get married.
So that you can have somewhere to put your sperm.
Yes. And by the way, as the younger you are, you are very strong genes and strong whatever. So the kids you have in your old age are the ones who are, you know, they have so much stamina and so much, they have so much, they are rich. Genetically, they're so rich. But if you keep on pumping yourself, by the time you get married at 30, you are not getting your firstborn. You're actually getting your 60th. It's like your 60th child. It's like somebody who has had 59 children and they all died. So the one who survives is the one who is child number 60. Is you're going to
at child number. So you said that one cosmic release is not equal to a child, ideally.
Ideally, it is not that. But if you have been doing it if say you have been jerking from 20 to 30.
That's 60 children on average.
Those are a lot of kids you have thrown in the dustbin. A lot of kids you have thrown in the dustbin.
But it's not similar to abortion.
Abortion is now is different for women.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we close with, does donor aid help Africa? Because there's a lot of concern over the announcement that US aid will be closing shop.
Donor aid is the most dangerous thing for Africa. Nothing is as dangerous as foreign aid for Africa because it cripples our capacity. It makes you incapable of. I have a list here, I'll show you, of how much money left Africa. How much money left Africa in the last 5 years versus how much money came into Africa through aid.
Yes.
And you'll be shocked. You'll be shocked.
Page 234.
Page 354.
Hmm.
354 is about exports and imports.
Yes.
That's about imports, but I was talking about, let me look for the one on capital flight. Where's capital flight?
Mimi hata kitu itanishangaza sana, and I'm still grappling to do to wrap my head around is with constructions, how do you get time to be a professional?
See, like these are the import exports for Kenya for the year
20
up to 2017.
Yes.
So China, we had a trade imbalance of 1.4 billion in favor of China.
1.4 million?
Billion.
Okay. In favor of China?
In favor of China. Japan, we had 403 billion in favor of Japan.
So that means...
France, it was 81 billion in favor of France.
That means we imported more than we exported to them.
Yes. India, we had a trade balance of and these are $1 million. UK, 12 billion. Germany, 163 billion. USA, 257. Total imbalance for Kenya was 3.4, and that was 20. These are $1 billion. Okay? So aid, then because aid cripples your capacity, because like agriculture, when you are given agricultural aid, when you are given food, it means that your farmer cannot produce food because there is no market. But the French farmer is actually increasing production so that he can feed you. So what they do, they have created this system where German farmers, UK farmers, American farmers are paid very heavy subsidies to produce more food. Then they cripple African capacity to produce agriculture. And then they give us their surpluses as aid. You are given their surpluses as aid. So when you are eating foreign aid food, you are actually putting a rope around your neck. And that's why I find that countries that are showing the highest economic increment rate, like Vietnam, like India, it starts with food sovereignty. Food sovereignty is you must feed yourself. A country is like a home. Even in our villages, a home that cannot feed itself just disintegrates. Every person follows his hungers, and the home is deserted because they cannot feed themselves. It's the same for a country. A country that cannot feed itself it cannot do any other economic activity. But these programs are designed in a very clever way to cripple your capacity. When it comes to research, you may start doing research either at the University of Nairobi or ERI or any other research organization. If it starts to show some promise, a white man will come and tell you, look, you are doing a very good job. Let us collaborate. So you tell him, fine. He promises you money. So he gives you the funding. The first thing they say is that because we have brought a lot of money into your research, we need to have our person to look after our money. So the finance director of the research will be our person. So you say, fine. They bring a Mzungu. They bring a white man. And that's how they now hijack your research. It is no longer your research. They're using your brain, but the benefits are directed to their countries. Once they achieve the result they want, that's the end of the story. They close the research. You have been paid a good salary. You have been driving a double cabin car, but the real benefits of your research will not benefit African country, will not benefit your country. It will benefit Europe. Industrialization, the same. There's nothing but it is a very big shame that in this age, we are still exporting raw materials to Europe. We are exporting tea. We are exporting raw coffee. We are exporting raw groundnuts. We are exporting raw avocados. That is is actually treasonable. It's a treason against our own countries. Because when you export raw materials, you are not just exporting that material, you're exporting high-quality jobs in sales, high-quality jobs in logistics, high-quality jobs in packaging, high-quality jobs in all those sectors. Now, those jobs end up in Europe. And this is one of the results that we have very high incidence of joblessness in Africa, because we do not add value to our raw products. The value addition is done in Europe. So Europe enjoys a very high standard of living. They have very high levels of employment. And Africa, the producer of these goods, you only get the subsistence. It's only the subsistence farmer who gets a very small portion of the sweat of his product.
Understood.
So aid is actually manufactured. These people have universities in Harvard. They sit down, they look at, they study Kenya, they study your structures, and they know how to penetrate and how to capture you. And they never miss because they've been doing it for. They have now fine-tuned their systems.
Okay. Yeah. This conversation has just been a tip of the iceberg of the knowledge that has been shared in the book, New Confident Africa. Thank you, Sana, to Nuria, by the way, for hooking me up with this book. I don't know how I landed on this specific one, but it's a very well researched title. It will challenge your, kama wewe ni mtu unapenda ideas kama mimi, it will challenge sana mindset yenye uko nayo. It talks about opportunities, development, culture, politics, governance, history, family, and the future. We have pinned a comment in the pinned comment, this video. We have pinned a direct link on how you can get this book directly from Nuria. Uta click, follow the instructions, fanya mambo yako, and it can be delivered to any part of the country. And I believe network ya Nuria ina expand mpaka diaspora. This is very well written. Hii ni kazi nzuri sana.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for actually sparing your time to come share your knowledge with us.
I'm also pleased to be here.
Asante.
The title of the book is actually deliberate, because one of the issues that Africans suffer from is lack of confidence.
Okay.
We have to regain our confidence for us to face the battles ahead.
It's very well written. Yeah. This na pia kitabu ya Chacha Nyaigoti Bichanga. It's one of the best locally written books on finance. Yeah. Nimekuwa na postpone kumtafuta, and I'm going to set that up very soon. I hope tutaweza kumpata na schedule zetu ziingiane. Yeah. But this I highly recommend. I really enjoyed this book na tumeipanga na najua nitaendelea kusoma places sijamaliza. Okay. But it's beautifully written. It's a book you can debate with ukisoma. Yeah. And I like a good challenge.
Okay, thank you.
Hii ni kazi poa sana. And I believe for conversations like this one, I'm not wrong. Yeah. Our audience usually ask that you come back. Okay. Na tafadhali, if you have any question that you feel we can address with Mbira Rimi, please tuambie hapa kwa comment section so that we can set it up. Timetable yake ikiallow tukae chini tena. Yeah. Otherwise, asante sana.
Thank you too. I'm very pleased.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.